Hey, breaking into projects tonight, reviewing everything that we've been working on recently and trying to just work it into a nice sequence for potential investors and collaborators. What's that? I hear you say you want me to prove that I've got some clothes on here. Well, nope, not today. We have the all naturale presentation. As I bear my work, I bear my dreams, I bear my soul. I couldn't bear to wear clothes with such a raw, real, honest presentation as this. Or maybe just wanted to give you a present, is all. No, we are closer than we've ever been. It's easy to just keep working forever. I'm like, oh, I could come up with some interesting scenarios or quest lines, ideas for another project, or add more ideas to projects that we've already got. And, I tend to do this nigh endlessly, where with all the cool stuff that I've got to work on and the dreams for the future, expansive and dynamic, how you could build an arts production company with things like tutorials, where you're building up a series of tutorials and at the same time networking talent and collaboration to have those tutorials and that series expanded by a community so that the foundation that you create could become a branching skill tree of sorts, a regular old sphere grid of abilities that you can stack together and add to each other to create something that is uniquely reflective of your personality and your dreams of what you want to create, and something that continues to evolve and expand along with your dreams, along with your skill set. So there's always something that you can add to it. And having a network like that puts together like skills that lead one into the next, nesting skills of abilities. I'm trying to think of an example here. But when you're drawing, to have things like foundational drawing and foundational drawing of shapes and how they fit together that leads to anatomy, so that you have a foundational understanding of anatomy leading into like rendering, lighting, and shadow, and how to plan your lighting and shadow. And then you can do that with your building blocks and your anatomy, so you can start to build things like sci-fi motorcycles. So you can build things like basic backgrounds out of different types of textures, like bushes and leaves and floral arrangements, and also like a crumbling wall or a reflective metallic wall. And even after you just have a few of these, like reflective metallic surfaces, kind of like matte surfaces, both matte, reflective, gloss, and like crumbling or like damaged areas. You have something that can give all of these different examples of storytelling in design, so that you can capture the energy of a scene very, very quickly, right? If there's someone that's exploring these crumbling ancient ruins, or something that's glowing with magic, or someone that's getting a quest in a very safe and sterile environment, like Death Stranding or something, where there's some areas that are very safe. There's areas outside of the walls, like a sci-fi Attack on Titan type RPG scenario, right? Um, where there's monsters and there's like intrigue, and you can add things onto that, like the digital painting course put together by Ahmed Aldori, Med's Map. And I'm talking about covering a lot of the foundational stuff that he already has covered in pieces, but with a more long form series that puts together basic practice and continues to add more complex types of practice, one onto the next, so that you're not always jumping around while you're skill building, which I've found has been so much the case for myself. Right? Okay, so I'm just giving an example of something that is the kind of thing that I work on and develop ideas for during the daily. But if you're thinking, okay, that's all about arts and design and storytelling, especially design, but those are all of the foundational skills of like illustration as well, where even if you're not making your own characters or doing something like storytelling in a scene, you're still articulating a number of characters and creating a composition of the shot, and you want it to be good, right? You want to be this standalone piece that evokes a certain like emotion, you know, whether it's one character's personality or being just a dynamic shot of them being explosive and badass and awesome, right? If you're imagining a illustration for like Final Fantasy or Nier or anything that you wanted, whether it was a serious version of a Nintendo piece or a cartoon version of more serious characters like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Metal Gear Solid, you can change the genre to give a different reflection of your favorite characters. You can do these things in all kinds of ways. It's really dandy. But then you have something like a traditional paint series or an abstract paint series, which are both things that I've dabbled in and would love to dabble further. Where just through the application of paints and the physical application of the medium, right? How you throw paint, the kind of material you use to apply it, whether it's a sponge or like an old cloth or like any of these things, the way that you put the paint onto your applicator and then apply directly onto the canvas and the physical material of the canvas, whether it's a glossy poster board or something with much more absorbency like a cloth canvas, um, to create all kinds of different effects and ways that you can take those effects and then isolate them into a piece of like graphic design, into a digital image that's now all pixels, right? There's no remaining physical trace of the materials whatsoever, but the materials created this impression that you're able to adapt to pixel form, and creating libraries of graphic design assets out of traditional materials and giving examples of how you do this so that again you could reach out to an entire community and you'd have them be putting their ideas together. And if you put your foot forward and give an example of you sharing your techniques, sharing your experience, and sharing your assets like those paint effects and whatnot, you could set the example so other people continue that momentum, putting their own like the ways that they innovate on that base, you know, like here's a tutorial expanding on that tutorial with something that we've added in. Here's more unique assets in that way. So people's ideas start to inspire each other as they bounce them back and forth. And it creates this vibrant and living tapestry of design of all of these assets. And that was something that I found when I was like looking in graphic design asset libraries across the web, was it would be so cool to see more cohesion among them. You know what I mean? To have a strong cohesion, which is to say, they didn't seem like they were relating to each other. They were all different resolutions. Some of them were all from different versions of the Photoshop. They're from years and years apart one another. So when you're putting together this collection of all of these things, they felt very mismatched. If you had something like, you know, we're all using the same general program and we're trying to shoot for the same high quality resolution and we have tutorials showing exactly how you can do those things, even like a similar aspect of categorization where the language that we're using between these brushes, assets, and skill sets is shared, so that as you're putting them all together, they neatly stack into one library of beautiful design assets. And if there's tutorials and examples of ways that you can use these things together, because if we have a whole bunch of them as kind of like the foundational base of the projects and experiments that we're doing, if someone made a tutorial, they could show, okay, I've made a new thing, and here's ways that I think it combines together with the existing things that we've all been using. Yo, it's so cool. You know, that's so cool. And then as you start to collaborate with other artists, painters, and designers, you know, people that can create like complex shapes with, you know, years and years and years of finessed dexterity, like you can get into graphic design immediately and start putting together assets in a very like comprehensive way, because all of the steps of the composition are in your hands. You can go back in time and forward in time, and you don't have to do any finesse dexterity work to get a composition of very high like complexity, you know? You just have to have an understanding of the program. Like Final Fantasy or something, you don't actually have to learn how to cast spells and swing swords. That would take years and years. But having the game that just controls your intention, all you have to do is place in the right spot, and those years of dexterity are automated for you. Using Photoshop is a lot like that, where Photoshop is your fantasy hero. It can do those perfect pirouettes and limit breaks at just the right time if you can articulate them, and it's placed in the right place at the right time by you. So it's more like your mind, and the like physical part is through the machine. Yeah. But there's lots of ways where you see illustration and design and people that can sketch and elaborate and create entirely unique patterns and textures, and ways that you could apply them and remix them in a whole bunch of ways if you're, becoming a part of this graphics design collective, this community. So if you made an asset and you wanted to donate it to a part of this cause, especially if it was something like creating murals for world peace. And there's ways, if you look at Shepard Fairey, the graffiti artist who did the Obey posters, he did the Obama posters. The Obey t-shirts are really, really fucking cool. A lot of the Obey stuff is some of my favorite graffiti of all time. Shepard Fairey's awesome. Uh, and they know how to print out these pieces of murals, and you'll do them in several of these kind of posters, and then you apply something to them, and they like become a part of the wall. I'm not sure exactly how you do it, but they do. It's something that's been mapped and scripted to like exact precision. The way you can just like print out a whole bunch of pieces of an image with the right thing, and you can make a mural anywhere incredibly cost effectively. Even if you've made the mural, in Tokyo or America or anywhere, and you're trying to place in a war torn, or maybe not war torn, because you don't want people like putting up graffiti in a war torn place if it's dangerous for them, but somewhere where having this beautiful emblem of peace might help to inspire and uplift the community, to build communal support. And this could be anywhere across the world. You have the way to give them the files, and if they have the printers and the materials and ways that you could ship those things, and then if you had a whole area, it's like you can print out multiple murals with that, and there could be like 20 or 100 murals all the way across this whole city, each of them evoking this sense of community and this shared desire for peace, for beauty. And I love the idea of beauty as a connecting force. Yeah, there's that moment in Final Fantasy VIII when he says that their real mission is to end world conflict by spreading beautiful flowers all across the world. And I'm like, it is harder to be aggressive, to be an aggressor in a place with these images of the beauty, the magic, the fragility of life. And flowers are a good emblem of that, I think. If you're giving people the symbols of those universally shared values of truth and beauty to remind them, to remind them of the goodness and the life force within themselves, then there's an impression. It makes an impact. And I think that impact as a ripple effect could create a positive force for change. So that's another thing that I think of. And as you see both of them, you're kind of thinking like, oh shit, those things go together in really cool ways. As well as the traditional series, if you get some people that are just heavy investing into the how do you do awesome abstract paint effects and figuring out and mapping all the different techniques and applications. Just kind of similar to graphic design in the way that it doesn't take a long time to learn how to start doing abstract paints. Of course, there's a high level of mastery, but as soon as you start throwing the paints together, you are using physics. Where if you're just like base sketching, right? You're doing like Renaissance sketching, you have to like use your mind to articulate all of the physics of the image. And it's just application of graphite, You're doing those exact skills that we mapped out earlier, where you are like creating shapes in space, yeah? And then how light is hitting those shapes. So that, influences exactly what the tone is. And then things like bounced light, that hits a surface and reflects back. So even within the shadowed areas, there's light gradients that move against the shadows, and having bounce light, shadows, cast shadows, where a shape will, create a shadow alongside of the ground or the other shapes that are within the shadowed area. And if you start to learn these things, like it seems like a lot at first, but if you invest like a week into diving shadows, and this is the kind of thing where if we had a studio space, I could be like, okay, we're going to do one thing consistently, because everyone knows that if you do one thing consistently and block time onto it, you can multiply your retention, you can multiply the amount of new skills that you gain, and the way that you actually get a well-rounded mastery of what you're trying to master or demonstrate. So to have a little bit of time where you could do that, and to encourage other people to do the same thing, because I would be more apt to do this if I saw these courses. I feel like most long form arts courses are like, you have to buy this for, if there's any cost at all, it's like with the amount of free assets that are already out there, I don't know, like you'll get so many less people learning the thing, even if it's $10 or $20 or something. I feel like if it was like free and then you had a donation, or if it was valuable to someone, people that got a whole bunch of value out of it could throw like $10, $20, $200. If there's someone that's well off and has a job in the industry, if it was still useful for them, they could invest quite a lot. This is something I would do myself. Like if I had the money and like had extra money and found something that was really useful like that, you can put a whole bunch on it just because it's something that you personally believe in. Yeah. I love that. I love the ability to do that. I feel like that is a really, really good model, and it'd be great to be able to set the example of that a little bit more. Whereas other people that are just getting started and they have no surplus whatsoever to invest in this can, get the whole value of it from where they're at. And if it is something that made a meaningful change in their, their quest to learn the arts and be able to express themselves and bring their dreams to life, and in time that proved to be incredibly valuable, they could come back and invest in it if they wanted to. But having that good faith and extending a hand of good faith where someone gets that sense of gratitude and ease that you get, where you've made it easy for them to pursue their dreams and you've given them something that could be an incredibly valuable gift right off the start. And that like makes good community. It creates a good dedicated fan base, right? Where your fans are like, yeah, that was amazing. It was such a blessing. It was a boon when I needed it. It kept the darkness off my back while I worked to bring these dreams to life. Yo, and that'd be so cool. There's been so many times where I'm like, I would really like to dive in and learn this one specific aspect of the arts, like a lot, like perspective and constructional drawing and gestural drawing, where you're drawing with lots of movement. Going back and forth between constructional and gestural is the way that I've built up the series and the kind of tutorials that I've made up till now. And I still think that would be a really, really, really good way of doing it. That might be the way that I do it myself, but an even more structured technique might be cool as well. I like the way that it builds between skill sets. You can tell that I'm already doing that a lot, and that's something that I rep a lot. Whereas like if you learn two different things and you think these things are different, but they have some shared aspects and commonalities between them, then you start to generate your own thoughts and ideas. And those thoughts and ideas could lead to innovations, where putting together those two things, you can put them together in a whole bunch of different ways. Like gestural and constructional drawing, loose, abstract, like movement, sketching with a whole bunch of movement, where you might have some angles and shapes, but other times it's just a scribbly line that stands in the place of that. If you're trying to, to evoke or represent, to suggest flowers, you kind of just scribble in the idea of flowers really, really quick to get to the next thing that you're really excited to draw. This is kind of like tempo or pacing, where you try and keep up with the pace of your inspiration. Yeah, where you are able to spend the time blocking in to capture the vision in your mind, but put your focus and detail on whatever is exciting you and lighting you up about that art piece, and then to be able to go back in layers and layers of detailing once you've captured that expression, that emotion, that seen in the vibrancy of it, and you can sit back and look at it and you're like, damn, yeah, the angle, the character, the movement of it, it's just right. And then you can detail it and detail and detail it without losing those things, especially in the digital medium. Yo, there's so much utility of the digital medium where you can do things like not worry about messing up someone's face, so you can experiment endlessly. And that is so damn cool. Without being, oh, it's already really, really good. If I was to like draw on it and it wasn't good and erased it, I might not get it back to that place where it was so good. You never have to worry about that. And to be able to have a art space that is free of worry is always such a valuable thing. I don't think you can understate that. Or overstate that? Sorry, I always get that mixed up. Yeah, you can't overstate that. It's not to be understated. So those are like three things, yeah. And the idea is you're breaking projects and ideas. Like if it's an idea for a comic series or it's an idea for a game, you have all of these awesome networks of collaboration already set up, right? Already set up. So there's like artists that are making discoveries, and if you were just tapped into those communities where you're like, okay, this is an artist who has this really cool flow for like drawing comics. This is an artist that has some really cool effects, whether they're like traditional painted effects where you're using abstraction and then using graphic design to bring in elements of that abstraction into illustration and design. So it's like, oh man, you could use those awesome effects in the comic with this other guy's style of capturing figures and some like detailed expressions of like facial features with this other writer who has an idea for a story. And it's right in line with these other two things. If you put those people together, they'd be a very powerful team. And if you're like, that could be the core team, and then you have two or three other artists that just have a really good foundational skill set, like they've gone through like not necessarily art school, but they've gone through all of the foundations and can pick up the slack and like cover finishing the illustrations to a really nice level. So the whole comic looks very consistent and clean and good, and your core artist and writer would be able to move very quickly through it. And then, I mean, as an art student, to be able to have most of the core and foundational work in an awesome comic series done, and then you just get to refine your skills by bringing it up to like a finished level, that would be so fucking cool. You know, like I so wish that I had the opportunity to do that at some point. And who knows, we still might. Or even just going in and scripting action and stuff, where I could do loose gestural drawing and someone else could come in with the like finesse in doing the line work and the finished quality. I like when you still keep a little bit of rough and abstract quality, like Yoji Shinkawa, like Ashley Wood, like all of these awesome artists that keep a level of abstraction in their work, even as they, you know, build it into like a really refined, badass compositions. Always drinking a decibel. I was like, oh man, I don't feel like caffeine affects me. It doesn't affect me very much. And caffeine doesn't affect me very much. Then I was watching a video I made a couple days ago, and I'm like, man, you're talking like nonstop. And I'm like, I'm trying to get everything that I want to say into a concise space, you know? Because if I'm like, oh, it's like 10 hours to explain all of this, then you know, like who's gonna invest in it? But it's also maybe not ideal to be like talking constantly. There's like a time and a place. I think I can usually like understand people if they're speaking very quickly. I'm not one of the kind of people that like watches presentations on like 1.5 speed. Like sometimes it's nice. I can definitely understand 1.5 speed. It just sounds weird. Like the cadence of people's voices ain't quite right, man. um yeah. So where are we? Building networks of collaboration, just finding a starting point, you know? Just finding a starting point is all we'd have to do to be able to build on it and to expand. Some of the things I'm talking about right now are kind of like mission statement. And again, as I said in the beginning of this video, I'm working on just like compiling together what are our biggest selling points and some of the best progress that we've made. What would be one project that could be made very valuable in a short amount of time? What's something that I'd like to work on myself? I'm trying to make it like a shared victory, which is something that I always do. Like out of all of these things, with like whatever my main partners or collaborators would be, like what would they be most inspired to do or to check out, right? So I'm like, yo, you know, um, I'm trying to figure that out because shared victories are always nice. You know, you get the same victory, but then they also get that victory, and together you get even more victory. You know, that's like always how I've seen it, where it's not only just as good for you to be there with like a partner, a team, you know, your collaborators, right? um it's even more, it's even greater, not just because they're, you know, influence, they're what they do makes the project better, it makes the energy brighter, it adds complexity and diversity, you know, their spark of inspiration adds to the inspiration, but also just because you get to share the victory together. Like when you finish an awesome project, it feels better to do a high five than a fist bump, right? At least a little bit. Yeah, I miss that. Um, yeah, I miss that. You might be able to put together a foundational, just like blueprint for a Mistborn series. Mistborn's really, really cool. I'm sure that we could try and do that now, and maybe we'll work on just drawing some Mistborn things because that'd be awesome. Mistborn is so cool. Oh, it's so cool. It's a series that creates a bridge in a lot of ways, a bridge between like superhero stories, kind of anime stories. It is a very anime fantasy novel. As far as fantasy novels go, I have never seen anything as anime as Mistborn be, for sure. But also, it's like a heist story. In some ways, it's quite modern. In other ways, it's kind of like a modern critique on the whole fantasy genre. The way every scene looks is so visually striking and dynamic. There are not many fantasy series, but if you saw a single image of a place from the series, you could guess what it was, and Mistborn is definitely one of those things. Oh my god, to be able to put together a thing, like Feng Zhu. Feng Zhu does videos where he puts together a series of concept art and he's collecting images that like capture the feeling of the vibe that you're trying to create with the concept pitch. So it's what you do like at the highest professional levels if you're pitching to a studio that wants to build this thing and you're like, well, we'll use this vibe and this energy, these colors, this emotion as we create a foundation for the whole team to build, you know, all the assets that you'll use to professionally punch it in and make the thing real. And he gives so many demonstrations of how you do this, whether it's a Dune reboot, you know, or like Chrono reboot or Final Fantasy VII reboot. He did that shit years before they made the remake. Really, really cool. Um, yeah, Fang's the man. You know, if you saw Fang do a Mistborn type thing, that'd be so cool. Some of the things, even like dynamic action and poses, and capturing the dynamism of the poses as she's whirling and spinning through the air in the mist. I feel like it'd be really good with. There's other people that also be really good as well, but I think that is an area where I would excel. I don't know if Feng Zhu could do that stuff as good as me. Yo, like maybe he used to be able to, but even still, capturing just the right amount of lines and complexity and simplicity, I haven't seen him do a lot of organic forms in movement, doing spinning things. I mean, obviously, he's the absolute master of like architectural design and sci-fi and creating like ships and stuff that have never existed before. I don't know if anyone does that better than Fang. And creating like locations. He definitely does little mushroom-shaped buildings everywhere, but then he'll put them in any number of places, whether they're on a crystalline spire or like in an area with lots of waterfalls. Okay, so to put that together, we wouldn't necessarily have to go to Feng Zhu with that. But as we're expanding and opening the doors up to potential collaborators, and if we're like, yo, the whole project becomes a demonstration of collaboration at a high level, you could at least maybe get them to, excuse me, invest in showing off what a good amount of detail and like making a series of tutorials that a younger team could like then implement throughout the project. If you're doing a comic book series of Mistborn, with the idea that the comics might be able to be later adapted into games because Mistborn's fucking awesome for that. Someone might already be making a Mistborn project behind the scenes, but Brandon Sanderson, the author of Mistborn, is pretty he's just like out there with a social presence online. And he's got a number of like managers and editors and stuff that like channel the fan work back to him because he gets more fan mail than he could ever likely read on his own, and he does put in a bunch of time responding and reading to a lot of them. But if you made something that was like professional, concise, the work there was good, it was something that he liked, there's fan art, you know, specific, powerful fan art that he vibes with, you could definitely get a message to the man. And he sits as like a very well respected name in the fantasy sci-fi worlds, in the worlds of storytelling and design, and the course that he made in storytelling, fantasy and sci-fi writing is like the greatest example of a course that I've found that is a world-class course that is available for online for free. It was like a college course in fantasy sci-fi storytelling, and he like let you have it because of love of fantasy and sci-fi. And it is amazing to me that Brandon Sanderson was the only guy in the entire world to do that shit. There's probably someone else. I mean, there's some like maths and science courses that are really good out there, but as far as something creative, like no one be putting their stuff out there. I'm amazed. I'm really, really amazed. I mean, Feng Zhu is that guy, but I mean, Feng Zhu does not put his foundational material online. He puts his master stuff that'd be really useful after you do the foundational series, and he doesn't have the foundational series online. You know, what Brendan Sanderson does would be effectively putting the foundational series online and then the master course materials, you know? I mean, you don't get the hands-on like quality of having him critique your work, you know, the way that you might be able to. But even still, amazing course. And to be able to create more of those assets, you know, to be able to go in and say what we just said really, really concisely, maybe get it to Feng Zhu. Because, I mean, those guys in the college that they run do have open channels of communication you can reach out to. And this will be it. We'll just keep it here for now, I guess. I definitely feel like Feng Zhu is a really good guy for breaking concept design. And some of our game ideas, I'm sure that we could get like some of them to, it's hard to pick which, yeah. But as they work in breaking amazing games and concept design and stuff, and he's quite good and rigorous at like coming up with new ideas for things. That was a large part of the inspiration behind some of the projects that I make, was Feng Zhu sitting down and being like, you can break an entire concept for a game world and the mechanics and how they fit together, and here's a hook and here's another hook and here's another hook and here's how they fit together well, bam, right? Like, he proved you can do that shit, and I'm like, whoa, all right, I want to learn how to do that shit, and to be able to bring my dreams to life like that, to have a skill set that works as I have an image, a vision in my head and I can see it clearly, to have all the skill sets as you need to be able to articulate that vision. Yo. So that'd be really cool. And just thinking of potential investors, again, trying not to get just like lost in my head where I go back and forth of like, Feng Zhu or Brandon Sanderson, or some kind of Sanderson Zhu collaboration between the two where I go to one and then the other and try and create a bridge there. And I mean, I'm going to try to build a momentum of just doing it, yeah? Where there's not really a chance of failure if you reach out and you start putting your ideas out there, you know? Like, I feel like either of them would be into this stuff. And if they're like, well, it's not really something that we can do right now, but it was interesting in these ways, that's still another step towards collaboration. I don't think they'd be like, this motherfucker again coming in. I mean, I feel like we've gotten the projects to such a level where I believe in them and can see them and visualize them and know enough about all the steps and how they'd come together, where we can pitch and present for this like a friend, because we're a friend to the series and a friend to the work these guys do and have already done. So that spirit of gratitude, and appreciation for themselves, the respect and appreciation, and putting a good bit of time there. It doesn't have to, be too much of the presentation, but like a good bit of the presentation, right? Just to let it be known that that respect and the admiration is there, to open it up where they can be a part of the team of the project and a fan of it if they like it genuinely, and can think of it from less of an entirely outside perspective and start to invest themselves and their skill sets in it as well, to be able to start to make it a shared dream. The shared dream thing is good. And the thing with like the arts projects is really good, right? Like the abstract paints and effects and stuff, and just to get a couple of digital painters and people who could be like integrating those effects. If they know how to digitally paint already, and there might be a digital painter working in illustration where you have long form illustration where you're working on one single image of one character for like 5 to 10 to 20 hours, right? And they can figure out how those effects work in that framework. A different one where someone's making comics, and each panel is going to take like 20 minutes to maybe 2 hours if it's a really, really nice panel, but like 20 minutes to 2 hours per panel. And you're moving at a nice brisk pace where you've got to get the base sketch, the lines in, the tones and the colors, and then the effects on top of that. And ways effects can be used, and you can keep a little bit of abstraction to save time and increase style and quality. And when you can find that perfect medium of everything coming together where you save time, it looks cooler, and has a greater dynamism, or even is like evoking the storytelling, and ways that you could combine effects together, right? If you're something like abstract paints, right? What are ways that you could use like soft brushes, like air brushes, to kind of blur and mold that abstraction with something that looks a little bit more modern, like effects that you can do entirely with Photoshop and computers, to have like lighting sources that just look like a nice lens flare and a bit of soft lighting and whatnot, mixed with that raw textural abstract paint effects, and ways that you can like graphically remix the colors of those paint effects is something that I just started to do when I was making abstract paint effects. And I only spent like a couple of days on it. And I lost the space that I had for painting, and then in time lost the momentum to do the paints as well, right? Uh, and also the scanner that I had to be able to get high quality versions of them. So I lost some of the motivation. But if you had those things and you stack it up, and you could even start to do it just with paper, paint, and a phone, to photograph and isolate those images into their own like assets for design and graphic design, then you could just continue with a small team, right? Me and you could be just spending a couple weeks doing abstract paint things and doing that into like flowers and all these things. And then there was a team that gives examples back to you of how those effects can be used in a wide variety of applications and uses, how they bring their own work to life, how they add flavor to it. In a way that would be motivating, where if you're just making these textures and effects, abstract assets of design, and you're building onto it, it would be so motivating to see people using it, enjoying it, appreciating it. And if there was one thing that you did that turned out to be really, really useful, you could go in and instantly add 10 different variations of that one thing, because you might not always know what turns out to be the most useful on the other side in digital painting and graphic design, right? Maybe reach out to Ahmed Aldoori. Ahmed Aldoori, man, he has a great cross set, and he's been a teacher at like the #1 art school in the fucking country. And Cynics is doing the Chroma Core competition. Yo, Um, Cynics is a good, not only an instructor and an experimenter that has developed his own unique design language and language for um, building skills and using those skills. Like instead of coming from a traditional background of like going to art school, he kind of like built it up from all these independent tutorials and skill sets across time. Yeah, he made his own curriculum by combining a bunch of different things together, which is kind of what we do as well, and what we strive to do moving into the future would be a fusion of those things. We have a very good foundation that can actually build the fundamentals and like the building blocks of design. So you have like something solid to work from, and that's really important. And then combining a free form mastery of all these different techniques and putting them together in new ways to expand the whole field and the scope and the vision of design. So to think of those guys and reaching out and trying to put together concise collection of our ideas and the idea for this company as it could come together, and creating resources for independent artists as well, where they could find partners, collaborators, the techniques and tools that they need to build their skills up to a professional level. And once they have those skills at that professional level, to find work that is inspiring to them, not just to put money in their pocket, but do it in a way that gives life to their soul and keeps their heart alive, is really, really good. That's important. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm working on, putting together the presentations. There's so much there. Uh I did have a little bit, maybe one too many shots of alcohol, and sent a video presentation. It was my 45-minute video presentation to the guys at TED Education, Technology, Entertainment, and Design, the people that do TED Talks. I sent them my video presentation to their email. Nah, I sent it as a job application. With like an image of flowers in the place where they're like, put your resume here. And I was like, they won't let me go past this unless I put something there. And it accepted images. So I'm like, that's my resume. So they probably won't watch it at all. You might be surprised. I was like, just gave them a small challenge of like, check out these world-saving, world-changing ideas. Like if you're into it and have a dynamic enough hook in the beginning of my video where I'm able to maybe express myself good enough to keep them captivated enough to be like, there's something here. It might not be all of it, and it might not be exactly how he's saying it, but there's something here. I mean, like, we should all be advocating for the values of free education more than we are now. And we should be collaborating towards the greatest world possible. And that should be our mission statement, like globally. So there can be our mission statement together and personally as well. Everyone's a part of it. Everyone has something to contribute. Yeah. All right. We'll come back to it. Yeah. Awesome. Arts and design, bringing dreams to life, bringing dreams to life right now. I'm staying hopeful, staying hopeful and open to possibilities. You always want to try and throw in a little addition to your plans that it could also go even better than I'm planning it. To let the universe surprise and delight you is a secret cheat code that you can throw on everything that you're doing. To say, okay, it could be everything working out right, it could be even better. There might be a synchronicity, there might be a coincidence, there might be a magical piece of the equation or the puzzle that you haven't planned for yet that could elevate everything to an entirely new level. Yeah. And I think that is important. That's really important. So So cool. Hell yeah. Maybe we'll do some drawing here. Uh, I'm getting a strong feeling from the Feng Zhu thing. I always like kind of it's good to be patient, I guess. If I'm like, I could send that out there and it'd probably be valuable, but it'd probably take like at least a week. It'd take over a week to get back to me. And I'd just be sitting here. So I've been going for like months in this thing where I'm like, is there a way I could get the money right now? Right? Is there a way I could get the money right now, like tomorrow? So even as I'm waiting for like a finished reply and a presentation, I could get a PS5 and be playing Final Fantasy VII during those points so I can keep my energy and my momentum up. Because every time I get excited about something and I'm like, oh my God, the progress, the potential of this thing, the dreams for the future, it's amazing. And then I like come back to this space and I'm like, and the energy like dips down again and I've got to like go until I can get it back up and I'm like, yo, let's go back at it. Literally having a PS5 and my favorite games would be the thing to just keep the energy just straight consistent and straight good the entire time. That would be the most valuable thing, you know, and it really is so valuable when if you're like, okay, I've put in a good block of progress and time on this thing, and then you can just keep your inspiration going. You're like, these characters, these moves, these dynamics, these storylines, I'm making progress. You get visuals of making progress consistently instead of the other feeling of being like, I'm not making progress, I'm still in the same place. It creates a sense of movement and dream and vision and life and clarity and excitement and celebration and gratitude, universal appreciation for every single thing. There's so much to appreciate there. Oh my God. Yeah, and I would finally stop beating myself over not having figured out a way to get Final Fantasy VII Rebirth up till this point. I could start sharing my thoughts and progress more dynamically through something like Twitch streaming, having good technology to back it up. A computer would be the next thing, right? A computer would be the next. Oh my gosh, are you okay, Sanji? Sometimes he has nightmares while he's sleeping. I gotta go and comfort Sanji. Love and light, sending it.